Having covered Gants Hill and briefly Wanstead, I think it's time to look at the third of the trinity of new works programme stations on this part of the Central Line, namely Redbridge. So like those two stations, Redbridge is on the eastern part of the Central Line of the London Underground. It opened on the 14th of December 1947. Just to give a brief recap, as part of the New Works programme proposed in 1935, the Underground took over a number of suburban railway branch lines in order to upgrade them and incorporate them into the Underground. The line that's now the Hainault Loop originally connected the line to Epping with the line to Seven Kings, but the Underground was only getting the line to Epping, so they built a new tunnel enabling the loop line to double back on itself. And Redbridge is in that new section of tunnel. Redbridge is kind of different from the other two, though. The land here is relatively low-lying compared to Gants Hill or Wanstead, and because the tube line runs straight, that means that Redbridge is really not very far below the surface. In fact, it was built using the cut-and-cover method that's normally used for shallow lines like the Metropolitan and District, where you dig a trench, build the railway, and cover it up again. When you stand on the platforms here, you can see that the walls are straight up and down, unlike those at the neighbouring stations, which are round and, therefore, obviously in a tunnel. Redbridge is sometimes called the shallowest deep-level tube station, which is pretty mean, I think. Others argue that it's not really a deep-level station because it's cut and cover, and a third faction argues that it doesn't really matter, let's just have another drink. Building the tunnel was very difficult. The ground was marshy and riddled with streams and rivers. Compressed air was used to create a sort of bubble in the tunnel workings, while the tunnel walls were reinforced. This wasn't used at Redbridge because it was feared that, with the tunnels being so close to the surface, the compressed air would blast through the roof. The idea had been seriously considered of just avoiding all these problems by having the line come to the surface while it crossed the River Roding, and putting Redbridge station at surface level. But it was decided instead to use chemical soil consolidation to strengthen the ground and, as I say, to build Redbridge cut-and-cover styling. Next, there was the question of the name. Redbridge wasn't the only possible name. It might have been called Ilford West, Red House, or Red Bridge, 2 words. Spoiler, they chose Redbridge. The line made good progress during construction. Very good progress, in fact, and it was expected to open in early 1941. Unfortunately, like so many online debates, the Central Line was derailed by Hitler. The Second World War brought work on the new line to a halt. Fortunately, the tunnels between Leytonstone and Gants Hill were reasonably complete. So the Plessey Company moved in, turning the place into a temporary but very substantial factory for the manufacture of various precision components for the war effort. It was feared that Redbridge was too shallow to offer substantial protection against bombing, so extra soil was piled up on top to make the roof a bit thicker. If you're curious, the soil came from the deep-level shelters along the Northern Line that were being constructed at the same time. Now, there's an awful lot to say about the Plessey factory, so I'm planning a separate video on that where I can go into a lot more detail. The factory was there from 1942 to 1945. After it was cleared out, work on the line resumed and, again, made pretty good progress. London Transport were ploughing a lot of resources into this project. In 1947, Redbridge opened. The station was designed by legendary London Transport architect Charles Holden, and in fact it was one of his last designs for the Underground. Personally, I think it's quite striking. It's far from his biggest or grandest, but for a small station he's gone to town on the details. This rotunda is very Art Deco, and I can't get enough of these railings. One interesting feature is these roundels at the station entrance. Normally on the Underground, the roundels are a red circle with a blue bar, but here it's the other way around. I'm not aware of this at any other station, and one theory I've heard is that it's a visual pun. The blue circle represents water, and the red bar is a red bridge. I don't know if that's the actual reason, but I like it. Because the station is so near the surface, it has no escalators and is reached via a flight of stairs. There's also this ventilation shaft over the road in the shadow of the flyover. I'd be curious to know if it's a wartime thing. It's the same kind of architecture, but I've never heard it mentioned in any accounts of the factory. The station hasn't changed much since its opening. To be honest, since 1947 it's been distinctly short of claims to fame. It's not one of the busiest stations, nor is it one of the quietest. Really, for such an unusual station, it's been very well behaved over the decades. Hello all, I hope you enjoyed this shallow tale from the tube. If so, then a like would be splendid and a subscription would be even more splendid. As I say, I'm planning on covering the Plessey factory in the not too distant future, hence the fact that I've been doing so much filming around Redbridge and Wanstead, so keep an eye out for that. Thanks as always to my donors on Ko-fi and Patreon. You are the extra soil to my thin roof. And I'll see you all again very soon for another tale from the tube.